We're getting into an AI technology conversation. So, one of your favorite things to look at how the world essentially is changing and how you're able to match one to the other. And we're going to be having that discussion in just a bit. And then also looking at how the world has changed over the last few years when we talk about AI. AI, in this case, is not your neighborhood guy who's found out that he can use certain initials. It's artificial intelligence. And that forms the basis of a conversation that we have this morning. And our guest is already here in the Situation Room. Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here with you this morning.
Welcome. Dr. Okeleji is the CEO of SeamlessHR, and you'll be telling us what that's all about. But this morning, we're having a conversation about how AI can be used in workplace management. It's interesting because you always have that picture of the mean HR lady who's standing at the door with a ruler.
Why must it always be a lady?
It just always is. I don't know why. I don't know why. Yeah. Okay.
City certified.
I don't know why, but hey. Let's welcome you to the proper Situation Room style. So CT goes around I have to tell you this every time. CT goes around the continent every week. You're not allowed to ask us how he does this because, he's got his ways. He's certified after all. And he comes back every week from a different country with a new proverb. 6 a.m. Monday, he'll be here. So this week, he'll tell you where he is, and then he'll give us the proverb. You tell us what you think about it and how you would interpret it. We're already giving you work to do, you HR people. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Let's
super.
do it.
Okay.
Well, we are in the Republic of Rwanda, a very unique country. Unique in that if you look at the gender parity within its parliament, you will find that it is probably one of the most representative with regards to women on the continent. If you look at the societal norms that they have, it's yesterday that Ndu was telling us that in Nigeria there is a car-free day, meaning on that day you dare not drive. The other activities you're supposed to be engaged in other than driving, like cleaning up your neighborhood, what have you. Now, this particular country is also one of the cleanest. Now, if you have a day, say in a month, where every citizen goes out to clean, that country is going to be clean.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to be clean. You know why?
Let me keep quiet.
There are people who represent others when it comes to, mucking up things. If I'm responsible for cleanliness in my neighborhood, and there's some individuals who I know muck up, they'll do it once or twice.
Third time, muck up again.
They'll be told, excuse me, chief, go somewhere else because you're messing up this neighborhood.
Muck up your compound.
Back up, in fact, go away. Yes. Anyway, the proverb. The most extensive land is the human belly.
That's deep. So, and it's belly, like not mind or art. It's belly.
It can be whatever you want it to
be.
Belly.
My interpretation of it would be that there's so much complexity about human beings that you can't just judge a book by its cover, and that human beings are very complex and very rich. That's how I'll interpret that. Yes.
The beauty about interpretations is we can't fault your interpretation. It's how you see it. We were of the opinion that this proverb refers to greed. But it doesn't detract from what you've said.
Indeed.
Because greed is one of the unique aspects that human beings have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Indeed. Okay. So, 1,000 points to you. You can do with them whatever you please.
Okay.
Cash it in. I don't know, buy a house or a horse. But look, into the conversation that we're having this morning on AI in workplace management. I mean, AI has almost become buzz term now. Anything you do, AI. Somebody told me yesterday, I need to send a message to a group. I'm going to go type the thing in my AI whatever, and I'll get the message. I don't have to think. I don't have to put in my opinion. It has become the thing that guides almost everything that we do if we're in that space. And maybe now we're saying that it can be applied to really any situation. AI can design your home, can design your living room, can design your roads. And now here we are saying that it can also help in workplace management. Give us an overview before we get into the details.
Okay, so thanks again for having me. I'll start by just a quick, hopefully we can talk more about that during the conversation, a quick summary about SeamlessHR and why we are talking about AI in SeamlessHR. So we're a tech company that builds technology for companies to manage their human resources, what we think is their most important resources. So, and it's end-to-end, everything from hiring to onboarding to performance management, leave management, payroll management, everything that HR does, we just automate that and modernize it. And would use whatever technologies that are cutting edge at the time. And AI is cutting edge technology now. And we do that work across now 20 countries across Africa. We really are passionate and focused on Africa and sort of helping Africa build its most important resource. And, you know, I hope the conversation goes there. I'm really, really passionate about Africa. And there's a real reason why we're doing what we're doing. Now, but the AI side we're still in the early days of AI. And I personally believe that AI will revolutionize the world the same way electricity, for instance, revolutionized the world. And if you think about electricity, it works in different things. So there's electricity in this room for light, there's for sound, there is for video, there is for a lot of things. But when electricity started in the early days, it wasn't that ubiquitous, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's what AI is going to be. It's like computers have now gone to a level where they have intelligence, where they can read, understand, interpret, and communicate, which wasn't the case before. And so AI is the next frontier of technology, and certainly we are still very, very, very at the early stages of that journey.
Right. I think about it, and just from the things that you said, because now what computers are able to do is that they're able to read, they can, visualize, they can hear and communicate. But it seems as though there was an element of humanness that was introduced into this technology that allows it to do that. Because essentially, a machine is doing what you would have to do as an individual or as a human being. Yeah. But then now you're saying, okay, let's take that burden off of you, put in that element, code it into this machine, and then allow it to regenerate after that. Essentially, that is the DNA of what AI is, right?
Correct.
So then many folks are asking, okay, well, why don't we just do it as human beings then?
So the thing about AI is like, and you're right about that sequence, there's a training that happens to the large language models. Like you have to train the AI, and it's human beings that train the AI. A lot of training for ChatGPT, for instance, was done in Kenya. And there are problems with that, because then if you have the human perception still gets in, and you find that even you find some AI hallucinations happen, AI hallucinations where the AI is giving answers that don't make sense. You have AI that is biased because the trainers have sort of biased it to think a certain way. Now, but the advantage of AI is just the fact that human beings are not ubiquitous. Human beings cannot be everywhere. There are ways that we can generate light in this room, but electricity just takes it to another level, right? So AI, for instance, is capable of doing the work of multiple human beings at the same time. So ChatGPT 4 is more intelligent than any human being. Like the speed with which it can can ramp up capacity, the computing capacity is significantly faster than what one human being can do.
Right.
So it's about taking us as a race to the next level. It's about making us a lot more efficient so that we can get more value out of the material universe, literally. So, and to your specific question of why can't we just continue to do it as human beings, I think as human beings are on this constant race to be better. And AI is sort of like a cat that's out of the bag now. There's no stopping it, because we're now on this, and human beings are going to put all of their genius to it. There've been risk people have talked about, which hopefully we can talk about as well, because there's a risky bit of all of this. I think the last thing I'll say is that this year's Nobel laureates, most of them got their laureates on the work that they do in AI. The laureates in chemistry and physics, a lot of that is because of the work they're doing here. So the smartest people in the world are caught onto this one, and it's a trend There are many trends that came and went, NFTs and all these things, but AI is not like that. This is here to stay.
Now, Emmanuel, we talk about AI as a solutions provider to all this, but AI itself comes at the backdrop of heavy coding that is involved in it. There is also the back end, which is support and security in these as well. And as you've mentioned, for us to have AI that is working very well, there is training that goes into it so that we precondition AI to work best based off what we've told it. But what stops a good mind, a good brain from hacking into your AI and just having it confused? And here we talk about security of these AI in making sure that we get the best out of it. How do we, if we are in early days of AI, how do we deal with that problem?
Yes, it's a real problem because, like any tool that human beings have invented, there are good actors and bad actors. And AI is like a gun, for instance. A gun is a tool that can be anything that, in the hands of a good person or in the hands of a bad person. And so we are very worried about the potential for bad actors to capture AI. But the thing is, we're still very early days in AI. And luckily, the amount of investment required to build these strong models puts that responsibility in the hands of very few. And the advantage of that is that you can sort of manage at least the foundational models. And governments are getting involved seriously with regulation. People are taking the security side of this very seriously. And hopefully, just again, like the internet, I've used electricity as an example. The internet too is embedded in everything from WhatsApp communications to video communication to like everything now, to even cars and maps and all these things. But when internet started, if you remember, it was just dial-up. You can only visit some website, whatever. Now it's on mobile. You can do so much with it. But we ask ourselves, do you actually know the foundations of what goes on when you use the internet? Like, what's actually happening? How does
the
this
back end?
What's the back end?
Yes.
Some people have laid the fibers that makes you be able to go on internet and log on or whatever. So that fiber, the wires are being laid for AI right now with the large language models, with the large companies that are investing in this foundational work. And if you remember in the early days of the internet, for instance, you get a lot of spam mails in your mail and all these things. Now you don't get that many spam mails again. It's not because it's not because of anything that you're doing. It's because the people who've built this strong foundational infrastructure have put in a lot of technology. There's way more spam emails being sent. You just don't get them.
You don't get them anymore.
Because they've built in security into it.
It's like, governments tell us all the time. Just yesterday, do you know how many terrorist threats have been contained? It's just that you don't hear about them anymore. So what does that mean? That security on another level has been ramped up so that you're getting, notifications on time. You're getting to understand the character of some of these things. So then you can now ramp up your security, right? I guess it's the same concept when you look at it like that. Yes. Now, when we're looking at this technology, establish that, and we can see what it's being able to do. Like you said, still early days. It's unfathomable what then the world would look like in the next 20 years, for example. But now here we are, where we are in a workplace, right? How then can this technology be applied where the element of human resource is the star of the show?
So you allow me to sort of come home to Africa. And so Africa has about 18% of the world's population. But Africa's contribution to global GDP is less than 3%. So you find, and besides just human...
May I just pause?
Yes.
This 3% thing, I've heard it very often. How exactly is it measured?
So a simple way that they measure it is just even GDP, the gross domestic product of Africa versus global GDP.
That's how they measure it?
Yes. And we know that those measurements are, there's a lot of things that's just unfair because that's not the right way to measure the impact of the continent.
Sure.
So the 18% is a measure of our contributions to the diversity of the world. There are other things, like, for instance, 33% of all the gold in the world is in Africa, 60% of all the platinum, and all these other things. So Africa actually has a lot more that it contributes to the world beyond the human resources. And the other thing that I'll touch on that could be a little bit controversial is that this measurement is done in USD. This is a currency that we cannot print. So we have all this gold and all these human resources, and we give it to you, and you give us a printed paper that only you can print. And then you tell us that we're poor
because we don't have your printed paper.
But we are the ones who actually have the resources.
We have given that paper value.
Yes.
Because of what we have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
actually, if you throw in the history and what it is that the plunder of this particular continent did in helping stabilize and create these nations that we refer to as first world nations, these nations who now, when we talk about GDP, we're talking about what it is, the gross domestic product of the individual. It was on the backs.
Yes, it was.
So anyway, the point I was trying to make has been made. Now continue.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm extremely passionate about the Africa story.
Yeah.
And I was in London last week, and I'd not been in London for a while, so just getting back to the country, and it just hit me that this is a country that is in transition, that is now looking to redefine itself. To the point you were making, this nation punched above its weight. This very small island is dominating Africa, is dominating India, is dominating Australia, America. And so for hundreds of years, they're taking rent from all these places, and they've gotten used to taking rent from all these places, and now they can't take that rent any longer. And they now face the reality that they're actually a very small island, and part of that cockiness got them to the point where they say, let's get out of Europe and Brexit. Now they're a nation in decline because they suddenly just now find out that they're not as powerful as they think they are. They don't have slaves any longer or colonizations any longer. They can't extract value from everywhere any longer. So you will see that in their politics and the way they're changing leaders and everything, because it's a nation struggling. But let me bring it back to AI. Why did I go that route of, we contribute 3% to global GDP. Unfortunately, the world is structured the way it's been structured, and we have to compete. And what things like AI can do is to empower us to be able to multiply our contribution. Because AI, look at it as a superpower. That's how I say it. That human beings can layer that on their own natural intelligence and use it to get more value for the work that they put in. Because we need efficiencies in Africa. And if you're not punching to your weight, you need efficiencies. You need things to catalyze you, to help you leapfrog, to multiply your effort. And unfortunately, I worry that Africa will also miss the AI train as well, because it's expensive to participate in AI, and because we don't have the currency to do that, then we might miss out. So
actually, we do have the currency to do it.
Tell me.
You see, there's something that you referred to at the beginning. It's called human resource. And you are an example of that human resource. If you look at the African diaspora, that is a resource that other countries claim to be theirs and they enjoy. And they should, because choices have been made for people to live there. But if you are talking about the focus that the West has on this particular continent, even if you didn't know, they have already told you that there is immense value. Now, that immense value is what we trade with. We have the misfortune as a continent of having leaderships who miss the boat somewhere when it comes to this issue of ensuring that your citizenry benefit from whatever they have. But that is slowly being corrected on the continent, as we can see. So we do have the bandwidth for it.
Yes, I think I agree with you. And I think there's a nuance in how one looks at this. I think Africa is very wealthy in potential, but there's work to do to move from potential to reality. So it's like, it's a burden. You see a continent that has all these things. It's potential, but there's still work to convert. So there's political work, there's business work, there's personal work that we all need to do to convert that potential to actual reality, so that we can, because it's that reality we can take to the bank, literally. The potential, unfortunately, unconverted, cannot be taken to the bank. And so the work we are doing, for instance, it's like we feel that more Africans have to take this thing seriously. For instance, we do HR for companies to power human resources in like medium to large companies, banks and everything. And we're taking it upon ourselves to say African companies will not miss out on the capacity of AI to optimize their human resources, because we have the response. So when I sell my software to a company, the company is it's a trust exchange. They're saying, if I give you money, you give me technology to manage my people.
Yes.
If I'm not responsible enough to say, when these companies trust me with this responsibility, I have to make sure that they can leverage the most cutting-edge technology available. If I just take that money and I just give them the bare minimum, they will use the bare minimum. It's the same thing when we give trust to political leaders or any other person. If you're buying food from someone, you're trusting that there's no poison in that thing and that you're going to eat it and be healthy. And if that person didn't do the diligence to make sure that it was clean, then you have paid for something that hurts you. So I think that other business owners or other entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is also a promise. You only pay for something that delivers value. We have to take that upon ourselves to make sure that we jump on the trend that is defining the future and give that to our people, our customers.
Right. So what's the how, and how do we actually see this exemplified in some of the work that you actually are doing? And then how can we say, okay, this is working, this is a model that other people then actually definitely need to jump on? Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji is the director of SeamlessHR, and he's here with us this morning, and we're looking at essentially leveraging AI into workplace management, and then just also looking at technologies and how we can match that for our development through the continent, really. And those are the conversations that we're having this morning. A quick look at weather and traffic, and we'll be back with the conversation. I mean, it still takes some time to continue to establish what really this technology can do. So here we are when we're saying, with that understanding in mind, that I need to make sure at whatever level that whatever you're paying me for, I'm able to then deliver. But that beyond just the payment, that I have a responsibility to deliver that. So here we are with a technology that is still developing over time, and it's still going to develop, but many people are none the wiser. You give me something today and I'm going to think ChatGPT, for example, or AI is limited to that I'll be able to take a report, put it into a computer, it will generate something for me, and that's it. So the folks who are the practitioners of this technology then also have a responsibility to make sure that at this current time, everything that is available under that technology that anybody is leveraging money for, that you actually get. So now getting into the workspace at an HR level, what is it that then this technology can actually render to workspaces?
Yeah, great. So in our case, we start with like I start from ground up. And so things as basic as a company has employee handbooks, policies, there's a leave policy, there's a exit policy, and all these things. At a basic level, if you wanted to know about these policies, you go get a PDF and you read, or you ask HR. What artificial intelligence does is you put all of your policy in AI. Your staff can speak to an application and ask about policy and have an intelligent conversation with artificial intelligence. So it's not just spitting out a paragraph. You can actually say, what's the meaning of this? So how should I think about this? Okay. And literally chat with a bot about the policies of a company. And that instantly, make things easier. You can then go to the next level and say, let's say I'm reading about leave policy. You can then go to the next and tell the bot to apply for leave for you. And it can then go on and apply for leave on your behalf through SeamlessHR in this case. And so that's an example of a use case, right? For payroll, for instance, the executive, now I'm talking from the executive side, can dimension the payroll data. I can look at my payroll and say, who's the highest paid person in the company? What department is taking most of our money? I can have a conversational engagement with my payroll software, sort of figure out insights into payroll. And because we at Seamless, like I said, we sit on hundreds of thousands of sort of payroll data. The next level would be that a company can then say, I want to be at market, like I want to be competitive at market. Help me understand how much I should pay people in all these various departments. And we are able to then look at data across multiple places and say, if you're for your office in Nairobi, you should pay people in this department this amount. This is what the range is for your industry, whatever. For your office in Uganda, this is what you should. Next level of AI could actually then say to you, what do you think would happen over the next 5 years? How do I prepare my people to be future ready? So that's AI can then pull information from different sources. Now, the work we do in the kitchen, if you like, is to concoct the things that allows you to be able to interact with that level of intelligence.
Okay.
Now, the challenge we have now is that's the thing I was saying about cost. Especially at the early days of most technologies. So it's like when mobile phones came, the phones were a lot more expensive.
Yes.
But with time, the prices start to go down. Part of the challenge we have here is that AI is expensive. The AI tools, the computation that's happening behind the scene is very, very expensive. And they're dollarized,
Yes.
cost.
Of course.
And Kenyan shillings is probably one of the best performing currencies in the continent last year. But in other parts of the continent, the currencies are taking it.
Yeah, forget it. I mean,
Yes,
really.
yes. So it's been difficult because every of those calls that you're making is actually a cost to it. So if you have a company with 10,000 staff and everybody can call AI, the company won't be able to afford at scale that cost.
Okay.
So the work we're doing now is how do we make it affordable? So some of the functionalities that we have that we're just testing with a small group of people because we can't really scale this because we're still trying to figure out how to make it affordable for our customers.
I mean, Emmanuel, as we talk about AI and all that goes into it, I mean, it is expensive, yes, but at the back of it, for AI to be able to pretty much get the traction that it needs, especially in Africa, there is the issue of the data. We know data is big. How you use that data is another discussion altogether. But let's talk about it in the sense that as you speak today, companies like Meta, whatnot, are data manufacturers and sell that. As a company, how sure am I that you have put in place enough security such that my data would not be used against me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a number of levels here, and luckily there are even regulations now that. So on the first level is that you're right. People just say data is in the oil and gas. I think data is the data.
Yes.
It's even bigger than oil and gas, way bigger. And there's just a lot of investments that people are making in data now. Massive, massive investments. When I was listening to someone say he's investing $70 billion in building out data centers in Canada, close to because there's a lot of gas and oil in Canada.
Yeah.
So you're sitting literally on a gas plant, and temperatures are good in Canada because these machines generate a lot of heat. So
Yes.
one place
You want
that's
to cool
cold
them
and all
down.
these things. Some people are building data centers in the sea because they need cold temperature. So they literally bury those data centers in like the Arctic oceans and stuff. There's just a lot because we're generating so much data. Now, like all the charts that we're sending is data sitting somewhere. That's, so much data that there are now laws that ensure that people are sensible with the use of data. So GDPR, KDPR, and the adoptions of that law, adaptations of that law in different geographies govern the work that we do. There's certifications that ensure that you follow certain rules. There are things that you cannot do. And some of these laws are enforceable. So if you break those laws and you betray people's trust on their data, then you're going to pay a price for it. Yes, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
For example, what is the Data Protection Agency in Kenya pretty much? What's the position in terms of the data that you have and the extent to which you can use it?
Yes. So, for instance, you can only use anonymized data. For instance, you cannot use people's personal information. You can't even also use people's information except they give you permission to use it. And you have a responsibility to inform people that you are using that data. All these things are boxes that you have to check. That responsibility is there. But the thing I see, and I would, if you don't mind, wax slightly philosophical about this. I think that when we were living in small villages and all of our lives, a person could actually live entirely all their life within maybe 2 kilometers radius. And everything they needed, they get. There's the market. You make a touch roof, small house. You can build it yourself. You can plant what you eat. You can hunt for your meat. You can raise your stuff. And you don't really need many human beings to do anything for you. You are largely self-sufficient.
Sufficient, yes.
But we want this good life, right?
We want to eat lasagna.
yeah. I want to live, travel and fly and all these things. So we've told ourselves that we need these things. Whether we do or not is a different conversation. But the price we pay for a global world is that we're no longer self-dependent. We now depend on other people. So the food you're eating, you don't know who planted it, where it was planted, who made it. The clothes you're wearing, you don't know where it came from. The richest person in the world, Elon Musk, cannot make everything he consumes. So he has to depend on other people.
Others.
So the thing about globalization is this fact that we now have to share things from people. So it's like you have to trust that your doctor knows what your doctor is doing. You have to trust that your surgeon knows. You have to trust that your pilot knows how to fly a plane. Otherwise, you won't be able to get on a plane. The same thing with the responsibilities we carry for AI and the responsibility of law and governments and governance to ensure that people who bear this trust on behalf of the world are responsible. I'm not even talking about Seamless again. I'm talking about anybody who's responsible for AI. Lawmakers and the systems that govern the world needs to ensure, because we are going to have to trust people with our data.
At some point, yes, for sure. So, I want to come back to the examples that you've given about, so what you can actually do in a workspace. And a lot of the issues that came with technology was that the human, in terms of what they did with their hands, was going to be rendered obsolete at some time. I just think about the tea pickers when now the mechanized tea machines came about and they said, what are we going to do? We're going to lose our livelihood, So now I imagine if I can talk to a bot today and say, okay, Ndu, how many leave days do you have? And can I apply for them in the first quarter of 2025? The thing is going to generate, I go, right? Essentially, that's what we're saying. So he said, right now, I have to pick up the phone or send an email to HR and say, okay, what can I do here? What do I have left? Would the position of that person not be rendered obsolete? Because why do I need you if I can talk to a bot, for goodness sake? What do you need?
I think it's a very valid fear. And with every new technology, we've had to confront this. There are people who lived on kerosene and, this is how we made light before. When electricity came, something happened, and every time technology comes, it does disrupt existing systems. But first, I think human beings have managed to survive. We've managed to continue to evolve because that's part of our evolution. I see it as an evolutionary thing. Unfortunately, we can't stop AI. So what do we do? And what I think we do is to ensure that our people can evolve, that people can then get and I had City talking, and everybody was talking about training and certification and all these things. We have to train our people to evolve into the future.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be left behind. So it's like, how can we now have HR that knows how to use artificial intelligence to increase the productivity of their company? How can we make a 50-man company operate like a 500-man company so that the productivity of that company improves? That's and it just lifts all the boats on the sea. Right?
Is it the responsibility, for example, of the offering technology, SeamlessHR? Let's use that as an example. Does it then become your responsibility when you introduce the element of this new technology to say, okay, fine, it may look as though you, an individual, strong man, 20-man HR team, it would look as though we're trying to reduce the number of this HR team of 20 to 10. Does it become your responsibility then for those who introduce the technology to say, okay, guys, we're offering you this technology, but at the same time, we're not saying we're rendering you obsolete, but we're saying that you can actually uplift yourselves and give yourselves more and remain 20 people, but then be more efficient. Does that become your responsibility as well?
I see it as a collective responsibility. Yes, we do have a responsibility here. And in fact, part of the things that we're incubating now is to be able to have, because labor is relatively cheaper in Africa, to be able to have African folks join HR departments in other markets. So because you can do remote work. So we're launching Seamless in the US, and so HR teams in the US will be able to hire HR people in Nigeria to help strengthen their teams and scale. And it'll be great that the HR people that are hired in Ghana, in Kenya, in Uganda, know how to use AI. So while they might not be able to work for that bank in Uganda any longer, or for that manufacturing company in Kenya, they can then work for a manufacturing company in San Francisco or in Houston.
Got it.
So that's part of the responsibility we bear. But I said that it's collective responsibility, because there's a part where you can lead a camel to the water, you can, force it to drink. I think individuals, everybody listening on radio and TV today, we have to get interested in AI. This thing has come to stay, and I think it's a good thing for humanity. So we all need to spend more time watching YouTube videos on what AI agents mean. Just really educate yourself. Start from there, and look at how we know how to use the internet. I don't think of it as you have to go and read a big textbook or whatever. We can tweet, we can do all these things, but because we're interested, we'd have maybe 70-year-old, 80-year-old grandparents who are not interested. But if they were, they would be able to use it. So you can have a 30-year-old person who's behaving like an 80-year-old grandparent when it comes to AI because they're just not interested. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's been simplified at the level at which we're consuming, enough for us to be able to acquire that knowledge quickly and be relevant and move forward.
Why is it that on this continent, parents will do literally anything to ensure that their children get an education? I'm actually asking the question. Why? Parents will move heaven and earth.
Yes.
They'll starve. They'll do anything. Why?
I think that in my mind, and I don't think that there's any right or wrong. How I was responding to this question is that parents really, it's the means to an end. I think the end is what they're investing in. They want their children to have the tools to be able to have a better life. And we assume now that the way to have a better life is to go to school, graduate, get a job, and the sequence, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think it's that end that parents are saying, I want my children to be competitive so that they can get a job and do well in life.
Education has been equated with benefits, and there are ample examples everywhere that demonstrate that indeed it does. Now, when you talk about AI, and people haven't understood the benefits of it, because if they understood the benefits, and if it is a commercial enterprise, if it's an industrial enterprise, and you want to invest in the human resource, if the benefit is clear, the issue of the cost ceases to be a conversation.
True. Very, very true. Very
So,
true.
my question, what does Seamless
HR. Yes.
What is it that you do to ensure that people actually understand how these processes benefit them?
Yes.
And take the word benefit and broaden it as much as you like.
Yes. I think part of that is this work that we're doing today. Just being and grateful to be on your show to talk about this and to let companies know that you can actually automate. And I don't do saying that if you want to apply for leave, you send an email to HR or call HR. We can have a conversation after this because that shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. Not anymore. Not in 2025.
Yeah, not with Seamless HR. So the whole idea is that we already have built this technology. I mean, we started Seamless HR, long story, but off a pivot or something else 6 years ago. And in that time, we've raised $20-something million, $22 million to invest in this. Now, when I started my first tech company in 2005, there was no VC investments in Africa, and we had to raise little cash from everybody to build. But along that line, Africa started receiving enough investment so that Africans can now participate in building technology that is comparable with anyone in the world. That's great. So a company could make the excuse in 2004 that there's no technology that's localized that we can afford.
Yeah.
But that has changed now because they're now not just Seamless HR, but other people who have built technology built by Africans for Africans. When I was younger, technology was equated to witchcraft. When I was growing up, so this is witchcraft, because they didn't understand how it was done.
Yeah.
But we're like the witches and the wizards now, building the technology. And we exist to help companies. And to the point you asked about benefits, to actually leverage it, they're there now, built by Africans, affordable by Africans. When I say built by Africans, we're using feedback of our customers to build software that actually works for them. So everything from hiring, how do you hire the best people, to onboarding, to performance management, to leave management, to disciplinary management, to all of the workforce planning, all these things. SeamlessHR helps. Now we have close to 2,000 companies, banks, insurance companies, manufacturing, universities. We're sector agnostic across the continent that we're helping to do it. And the exciting thing is that we just keep getting better at this thing. And I'm glad that at least Africans now have a seat on the table. Because without some of these things, these investments and all these things, we would not be able to have a seat on the table. So I personally take it as a responsibility that, quote unquote, Africa's representative on that table must compete globally.
Sure.
And we must be able to look eye to eye with anybody else anywhere.
Doomsday conversations. Today, my company has invested into SeamlessHR. Everything is going well. 10 years. We've amassed data for 10 years with SeamlessHR. And today the servers go down. Boom. How do I handle my business?
So, first of all, we've created latency upon latency upon latency that it would take a global tsunami for your data to disappear. Because, one server can go down. But that's why, for instance, we use the bigger... Like we don't build server farms ourselves because we can't invest in infrastructure to provide that level of latency. So, I don't want to name all the names, but I would say the Microsofts and the Amazons and the Oracles of this world build massive investments in data centers and servers that ensures that there's latency upon latency, where there's not ever, except the whole world is engulfed in you say it's doomsday, maybe a comet eats the world. And at that point, the problem is not going to be your HR data.
It would be a little bit more than that.
Which actually takes me to the next scope, which would be in terms of the servers, and we know the investments that goes into the servers is heavy. Hence, you have to work with the multinationals that do exist. But let us bring it back home in terms of the need of perhaps African governments seeing the need of investing in data centers in the continent so as to enable companies like SeamlessHR to have their data here, and others can be able to come and buy this data from us so that we're competing in that global level that you're talking about.
Yes. I think one cheap way that governments are beginning to do that now is with this, KDPR type laws, where they then enforce that data must sit in Kenya. At least, if you can have backups in other zones, but the primaries must be in Kenya. What that then does to, let's say, Amazon, is that Amazon knows that for SeamlessHR to use them, and bound by law for that data to sit in Kenya, they have to put a data center in Kenya. Otherwise, no one will be able to use them. So we're beginning to see that data centers come up in different parts of the world. And that way, they can outsource that cost to the people who have the money to make those investments. And then we're also finding local people in different countries building data centers, because the amount of data we're generating is just incredible. All this conversation we're having is going on YouTube, and that's data, new data that we're generating that has to be stored somewhere.
What do you see as the future for this? Because here we're talking about 2,000 companies under, that technology currently across the continent. What is the potential in terms of what, SeamlessHR, others can do? Because I also hear you talk about $22 million in funding. Somebody sees the value in that for them to put those dollars behind this activity, and then to be able to activate that to the point whereby 2,000, maybe few for you, and to say, we want to get to 10,000, want to get to 100,000 companies, because Africa does have that potential. Where are we going, and what can we do? So,
great question. Number of things that we're doing. For instance, this round, we just raised $9 million that we announced yesterday, and a good part of that money came from two investors, and one of them is the Gates Foundation. Why did the Gates Foundation invest in an HR, take equity in an HR software company? The reason is because we sit on a lot of payroll data, and we now use that payroll data to help hardworking Africans gain access to financial services like loans. And the Gates Foundation is interested in low-income earners. How can we help security guards or factory workers who banks don't know and banks can't even connect with them? But because we process their payroll, we pay their salaries, automation, we can then expose that data on their behalf to financial services and get them loans at interest rates that they couldn't get anywhere. Because now they go to loan sharks who charge them terrible interest rates. But because we can do this at scale, we can get 200,000 tea farmers to have access to credit that is responsible. That's that's the future for us. So we're doing a lot of work in embedded finance. We're now helping people to say, can we help you get access to assets? If you're a security guard, can we get you a motorbike that you can operate off work? We're working with this security. I'm using a security guard example. Working with a security guard company to say your guards can take a loan, but on this platform, the guards can also take extra shifts. So that if you take a loan, you are repaying, but you also have the chance to work a little bit more so that you can earn to pay off that loan. Now, that's something that wasn't happening before because the loan shark just charges you an extreme interest rates, but you don't have the opportunity to get more work so that the effect of that loan on your family is reduced. So these are some of the things that the economies of scale that you're able to bring together because the kind of work we do for the next frontier so that what people else in the world have cured with social security numbers that allow you to have credit. We don't have that here, but we can innovate in another way to allow people to have access to responsible credit to help them scale. So this, and the last thing I know we are almost out of time, is we are also now launching Seamless in the US.
Okay.
And for me, it's one of my life's biggest goals that African technology is shipped to America.
Outside.
Before, it was African slaves and African raw materials that shipped to the West. Today, American companies will pay for technology that was built in Africa.
African intelligence, African technology.
Yes, what a time to be alive.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know, again, really quick and possibly in 30 seconds, that a lot of a burden is on parts of Africa that is not urbanized at the moment. What possibility lies there to be able to lift up the profile of these areas on the continent that are not at that level yet?
Yes, so that's the work I was saying that we're doing with the Gates Foundation, because it doesn't, like, why would the Gates Foundation invest in a technology company? So there's supposed to be impact. But there's that impact work where we're now doing a lot of work with blue-collar workers, with the tea farmers, with the different kinds of people in the hinterlands, and to be able to work to aggregate them and expose them. So we're like, instead of having a mobile app, you would have a kiosk that you can speak to in Swahili, and it would tell you, oh, this is your leave policy, whatever. We're doing that. I mean, we're starting with that in the US, but we're also going to do that here. So there's work. I think technology just makes the world better. Really.
Indeed. Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji has been our guest this hour. He is the CEO of SeamlessHR. A lot of things happening and a very exciting time to be alive. And thank you for sharing your insights with us in the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation today. It will be interesting to see what the future has to hold, or rather what it already holds, and how we can tap into that and actually lead the way in some of these things. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed conversation, and I'll see your HR on my way out.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.